Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. I thought I would bring in Theo to say hello. He's getting so big. He's really rowdy, ferocious. Still teething, not quite as bad because we got these things called puppy teething rings and these they're non-hide chew sticks in like beef and chicken flavor. So yeah, he's getting better with the chewing, but he's gotten so big. He's gained like a pound in a matter of a few weeks, which is crazy to me. And he doesn't have a lot of patience, you know. He's learning how to embrace his siblings and he doesn't quite know how to handle them because they're a little bit older. And so like with Princess, he'll run after her down the hall, thinking like she'll want to play, but the dogs think that he's like 40 pounds, like anger, violent, you know, chihuahua that's gonna get him. They're all afraid of him. So anyway, I just thought we would show you guys Theo. I'm in the process. I've been filming some stuff of Theo, like kind of him growing. So eventually I'm going to make kind of like a little mini documentary about him like growing so fast. Hi. So you guys will be able to see it, but he's still going. I share a lot of stuff on Instagram. A lot of people are wanting me to create an Instagram for him, so I will definitely do that. See, he's so ferocious. Hopefully somebody comes in to take him because he's not the happiest camper being locked in at the moment. So anyway, Theo, stop. He eats everything. He's in the stage where just like he eats everything, and I have to watch him. Like, he comes out with stuff and I'm like, where did you even find that? Like, I don't even know how you found that. So there will be another video uploaded after this. It will be my regular like Friday video that I was supposed to post. I've been having kind of a hard time getting back in the groove of like figuring out a film schedule. For the pre-post on Friday, I ended up let me see if I can get someone in here to get Theo out because he's like, I think he found tissue paper from one of the boxes that I ordered makeup in. I don't want him to eat anything. Okay. Sorry. So last semester I actually had dropped out of class like a month into the semester. I mean, for most of you that have... Oh. He's eating paper. Can you get him out of here? He's eating that tissue paper. I was too busy watching him. Like, I just don't want him to choke or anything. Sorry, guys. Okay. It's like having a toddler. You know what I mean? Anyway, I've been having a hard time getting in the schedule. I was actually dropped out of class last semester. For most of you that have been following me for a while, you know that I'm really close to finishing my bachelor's degree. And what ended up happening was my dad got really sick last semester, like literally a month into the semester. He ended up having both of his legs amputated before he died, and it got really bad. So anyway, I had to drop my classes to like go deal with that, and then sadly he passed away, as you guys know, in December. So I wasn't sure if I was ready to go back to class, but I did go back to class in January. Excited about it. I really was wanting to learn how to create apps, like, you know, from the App Store and stuff, and it's like total different world. Like, I'm really computer savvy. I love my tech, you know, like I obviously have done post-production, so always like the first on top of like having the new tech, but I've never studied or learned computer science at all. So this semester took a couple computer science classes that are specifically on teaching you how to build apps, and like, you know, you're kind of learning the language of a computer like internally. Wow, it's been hard. Got kind of frustrated with myself for a minute because I feel like I'm the kind that picks up on things really quickly, but it's been challenging but good. So I'm hoping like down the road I'll be able to create like a Ghost Girl Diaries app and like, you know, all kinds of different things. So anyway, computer science has been hard, and it's been taking up a lot of time that I've had to study. So I haven't gotten on a normal routine. So you guys are just going to have to work with me here till I get better. So anyway, Chanel is coming in. We love our Shanae. And remember, she's in a small town in Pennsylvania, and her internet connection is not the best. So just be patient with it. Her audio may not always match her, but she is fully here. Her connection's functioning. Just don't get upset about it. And we're going to talk about a couple of things. One thing we're going to talk about is Edgar Allan Poe, who is actually, you guys know, forever on YouTube. He's one of my favorite poets. I have some of his actual poetry books on my shelf. In fact, I should go grab them before we start. And another reason I wanted to talk about Edgar Allan Poe is there's actually several locations on the East Coast that claims that he actually haunts these locations. And he was like a really dark poet. He always did really dark stuff. And it ended up having like a really tragic end of his life. Kat was actually doing some research on him and found out that he ended up like becoming very broke. Obviously, like becoming a freelance writer, even in this day and age, is very difficult. And when he got broke, he ended up only eating like bread and cheese and wine, and it caused like his health to deteriorate because it was like basically like that's all he could afford, literally just for food. And they think that it caused him to get like mental issues. So like near the end of his life, he was really starting to kind of lose it. So it's going to be a really cool topic. I gave the topic to Chanel, not realizing how much she was going to like fall in love with the topic. She like kind of went down a dark rabbit hole of like, she would find out one piece of information, it would lead more and more. And I don't know, I feel like part of paranormal is the history of these like historical figures like Edgar Allan Poe. And obviously he's made such an impact, obviously on paranormal, but also on like just writers and poets as it is, because he was so dark. And I feel like for a poet or a writer of his time, he was so honest about, you know, a lot of dark, maybe somewhat grotesque sort of things. And I feel like at that time was probably not a very welcoming thing to society. People probably were really concerned by some of the things that he was writing that were so dark. So just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to put you guys on a Be Right Back screen. I'm going to go grab a couple of my books that are just behind me, and then I'm going to bring Chanel in live. So give me 1 sec, guys. Okay, guys, we are in with Shanae, Miss Chanel. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Have you missed filming now that you've been home for a couple of weeks?
Oh, so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet. I know. I always get kind of sad too after like the filming ends, which post-production starts, which is really good. I don't know. I feel like I'm hearing some feedback, but I don't know if it's on my side or if it's on your side. If you guys hear like that, like kind of white noise, let me know. Do you have
Do you want me? Do you want me to put in headphones?
do you have headphones near you?
Yeah.
Try it. Yeah, let's try it. But otherwise, it's not the end of the world. While Chanel's doing that, this is one of the books that I have. I think I actually ended up buying this at like Barnes and Noble or something really like local, something easy. I've had it for quite a few years, but it's Edgar Allan Poe Complete Tales and Poems. It's like a huge book. And this actually used to be on the shelf right behind me during all of my streams, old school streams, you know, like last year and then prior to that. And I always had a ton of raven stuff around it. So there's the skull and the raven inside of this glass ball. But I always had ravens all over, and I loved it when the fans would point out. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, I see the Edgar Allan Poe book behind you. That was when I was doing like constant, consistent pre-streams, right, when I would pre-upload. So I've always been, I guess, inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. I still hear the feedback just a little bit.
You do?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's my side. I'm going to see. Blake will come in because he's probably watching this right now in the other room because he's like 24-hour tech support. So if something needs to change, he'll come in and fix it.
Okay.
Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe. I'm just going to open our notes that we were kind of... So,
yeah.
So what, you weren't really familiar with Edgar Allan Poe?
I wasn't, actually, no.
So were you kind of shocked by some of the things that you found out?
A little bit, but also kind of not really, because a lot of people told me that he was a little dark, so
right.
I kind of knew what to expect a little bit.
Right. Can you imagine, though, for the time that he was alive, the things that he wrote?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because a lot of, I think, what I read was that the few first, like, poems that he didn't gain much attention.
Right. I think that's pretty typical of poets, though, don't you think? Or, like, writers. The first few that come out, like, nobody really knows who they are, and then suddenly they'll just have a sporadic, a really good one that everybody, like, falls in love with.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pulling up your notes. You took a ton of notes on Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
So he was East Coast, so you and Kat are both East Coast, right?
Yes.
So he was the son of actors, right? Which I was shocked about.
Yep.
I didn't even realize he had, like, come from a family of people that, like, you know, was something, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think Elizabeth Poe and David Poe were his parents.
Right. Scotland and England, which is crazy. So, let's see, he was taken to Scotland and England between 1815 and 1820 after his parents' death.
Yes.
Classical education. So when you say that, you mean like European education, or what do you mean by that?
It's, yeah, I guess you could say that it's more, like, because I'm not really sure how the education is in other countries. So I don't know if classical means that he studied, like, the arts, or I'm
just curious to, like, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
Is somebody in your house? Is there, like, there's a female in your house?
Yes.
Okay, because I swore I just heard, like, a female moan, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, well, okay, so if you hear screaming, it's my toddler sister. Okay. She likes to scream a lot. So.
Okay. Well, sometimes when I'm streaming with Kat, she has, like, orbs flying around. One day she had something, like, drop from, like, the top of her fridge, just, like, fell off, and I was like, what? Like, one day one of her cabinet doors flew open. So anyway, I just had to point out, because I'm sure people are going to hear it and be like, did you hear that? That was, like, legit an EVP.
No, it's a human.
It's a human. Except you did have something paranormal happen in your house earlier.
I did, yeah. One of my doors opened by itself. But I was, you know, whatever.
And you were home alone.
I was. It usually happens when I'm alone, though.
I love how calm Chanel is about it. She's just like, yeah, when I'm alone, doors open by themselves.
Well,
it's fine. Everything's
I'm sorry.
fine. Okay, so let's go back to Edgar here for a second.
Sure.
So, Edgar Allan Poe, obviously, he went to Boston, so that was basically where he was at. And I didn't realize, too, and I think this is something shocking for everybody, when I was reading through your notes, I didn't realize that he had been enlisted in the Army.
I thought that was interesting, too.
Because I'm a huge, like, veteran supporter, obviously, like, I've done, like, charity work with veterans, and Blake is a veteran, so both of us are highly involved with charity work. So it's so weird how he's so well known for being a poet and a writer, but I feel like it was, like, unheard of that he was a veteran. So he enlisted in the military, in the Army specifically, in 1827.
Yes.
And he was still writing poems at the time that he was in the Army, or just trying to become something, should we say. But like you said, he wasn't being noticed for any of the poems that he was writing. Did you get a chance to look at his, like, beginning work at all?
I looked at a few things. Well, his beginning work, not so much. I think the only poem that I was able to read while I was doing the research was The Raven.
Oh, that's a good one.
But yeah.
Oh, his very first one that he published is in this page, or is in this book. So that's interesting. Is that people? I just want to make sure, because just, you know.
Yes, it's people and my cat. She's going crazy. I don't know why.
I'm like, oh my god, there's paranormal
She's a
stuff
cat.
right now. So his very first one was called Tamerlane.
Tamerlane, yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. So we know him to be, like, quite dark, right? Like, he's somewhat a little bit too dark in some places. So Tamerlane, this one he's talking about unearthly pride, agony and desire. So I feel like he's always been kind of dark.
Yeah.
If this was his very first one, then this... Was that your cat again?
Yeah.
She's like destroying your room.
I don't know what's wrong with her is. Come on.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. So yeah, he's talking about like rings in the spirit of a spell until thy emptiness anneal. So he was always into like some dark stuff. So when you were researching him, just by like the dark stuff that he would always write about, do you think that he may have been involved in like Wicca or witchcraft or pagan?
100% something involving the cult, yes.
Really?
The occult, yes.
Like, especially, like, kind of the... I mean, there's never been, what I've read, super dark of, like, you know, he killed anything, obviously, but it does seem, like, ritualistic. It does seem like animal parts are sometimes involved in his poems, right? I mean...
Yeah, which I don't really know. Like, I don't know if that's just him trying to invoke some sort of mood, or that he was kind of giving himself away a little bit with what he's doing. Because, you know, with the occult, those kind of people are really, really good at, when it comes to art, they're good at hiding things in their art. So,
right.
Like subliminal things.
So, I don't think I've heard people really... I'm sorry, I'm moving my mic around because Blake said people were wanting to hear my audio a little bit better. So you think he may have been involved in some sort of an occult stuff. So he talks a lot about, like, spirits. He talks about, like, ghosts. He talks about paranormal stuff. You're a writer, which is another reason I wanted to bring you in for this particular topic, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, we had originally planned this topic to be like the 3rd or 4th week of January, which was his birthday. His birthday was like the end of January, and I thought it was just a really cool time. I'm trying to incorporate like paranormal events that happened that week in history, but we had missed it due to, I think that was when my dog had passed away. But we had said, oh my gosh, you know, Edgar Allan Poe, we're talking about all this like paranormal stuff. Do you think he was experiencing this stuff as a writer too? Like, you know, seeing energies, understanding what residual energy is, intelligent energy, all that stuff?
So I've always thought that, you know, when it came to movies or TV shows or stories, like, you know, novels and different things, and how people talk about like paranormal things or things that can't be explained, esoteric things, universal things. I've always thought that it has to come from somewhere, some sort of experience. It has to be inspired from someone or possibly your own experiences. So him experiencing something, yeah, like if he was someone that was interested in the occult and in sort of dark things or supernatural things, for sure, yeah.
Well, and you've done script writing too, so you always say I pull, you know, inspiration from things that I've experienced and things that are around me.
Right.
So he ended up moving to Baltimore, Maryland. He ended up having a daughter, right?
Well, I don't know if he had a daughter, but he moved, I think, in with his aunt and her daughter.
Okay.
And who is also his cousin, who he also married.
That's where I got confused then.
Yes, yes.
So it was a...
Sorry, there's a child crying.
It's okay. So it was a intermarriage in family, which back then it was probably common when that would happen. You would marry a cousin or whatever.
Yeah.
So Virginia, who is the cousin, right? She
Yes.
was 13 years old when he married her.
Right.
And he was like a man, right?
Like, he was like 27, I think.
Wow.
Or around there.
That's
late
crazy.
20s.
Which, honestly, I think that was a colonial thing, too. I feel like that was a thing that would happen often.
Yeah.
This day and age, it's shocking and clearly illegal.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, was it arranged? It kind of seems like it may have been arranged because it was by the aunt. It seems like the aunt kind of brought him in together or something.
Yeah.
Interesting. Once again, you don't really think I don't know. I feel like when you picture Edgar Allan Poe, you don't see this stuff. You don't
Right.
think of the army side. You don't think of him being a soldier. You don't think of him marrying a 13-year-old child. Like, you see, like, someone in, like, a very dark, like, office who's experienced a lot of dark things writing about dark poems. You know what I mean? Like, that's the image you get.
Right.
So when he moved to Baltimore, so now this is like where I started doing my research, and I had found out there are several locations that people claim to see Edgar Allan Poe. There's an actual museum as well that he supposedly haunts. I'm really reading the notes because I feel thrown off because I thought he had a daughter named Virginia. But I'm realizing that is who he married. I feel like it, like, messed up my history. Because I'm just, like, feeling really thrown off about it. I thought that was what your notes had said, but I wasn't. I was like, maybe she, like, mistyped it or something like that. Let's see. Let's keep going here. He moved in. So he moved in with the aunt and the daughter, which was his cousin, who he married.
Yes.
Ooh, that's strange. How long did he stay in the military? Does it even say how long he was in the military?
I think it had said he wasn't in the military for more than a year because he had financial issues that were related to a gambling problem of his, so after his parents had passed, he moved in with his foster parents. I think John Allen and Francis Allen were their names, I want to say. And that's around the time that he went into the military. And because of his financial issues and his gambling problem, the relationship between him and Allen kind of wasn't that good.
Right.
So that's when he had to move in with his aunt. And
so he's always had financial issues then, because they even say, like, towards the end of his life, he still had financial issues.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, and once again, being a freelance writer, it is possible, but it is very hard. Like, even in the realm of film, if you guys aren't familiar with it, I have worked with a few script writers, not personally, more because I don't work directly with script writers, even when I was working on set with production. But most of the time, Hollywood will use a lot of the same script writers and kind of recycle them through and keep recycling them through because they know that they're good and they're creative. So it's really, really hard to become a script writer in film, like extremely hard. And so it's just, I mean, it kind of makes sense because it's still very much like that today, right? I mean,
yeah.
He's a writer, he's doing short stories, he's doing poems. Did he do any novels? Do you know if he did any novels?
Yes, he did. He did a few novels, like short stories,
okay.
I think, as well.
Wow.
I don't know how many he did.
Always. And what was the gambling issue? Was it just like poker or something like that, or?
I couldn't really find anybody that would specify on that, but I'm assuming that maybe he just spent a lot of money as well, because there is, like, people who believe that he had a drinking problem.
Right. That's a big one that I've known, like, since I've loved Edgar Allan Poe, that he was often seen on the street very drunk or hungover, kind of like sometimes even slouched over on the sidewalk, like
Yeah.
had one too many beers or whatever, and that continued through like his entire life, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say he is credible with paranormal, because if he was like under the influence and intoxicated all the time, were the images and inspiration he's getting for his writing actual paranormal events or the occult, or is he just really, really drunk and he's like seeing things and he's like making up stories from like the visualizations that, you know, he's getting, these weird visions, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, also though, alcohol does make you more susceptible to paranormal things if it really was something paranormal.
True. Well, and that's why I always say don't get, you know, under the influence while you're investigating, because you take that filter off. I always make it look like a top hat.
Yeah.
You remove your filter and you're like, I mean, you're honestly susceptible to anything, even what I would say would be oppression or possession, which is why I find it dangerous. I would never like go somewhere super haunted and investigate under the influence. That'd be really, really dangerous.
Right.
But it also claimed that he may have been a drug addict too, but that was kind of like speculation, right?
Yeah, and it, like, I don't think it was confirmed, because I know that around the time that Virginia, his wife, had passed away, it was said that he tried to commit suicide by ingesting opiates.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they couldn't determine if that was like a one-time thing,
right?
Or,
and I even like heard that people believe that it was suicide that had killed him.
Right. Because he was found like barely breathing, right?
Mm-hmm. Semi-conscious.
And
yeah.
he had some sort of like a final line he said. Do you remember what that was? Kat had told me, it was like a real dramatic line. I shouldn't laugh, but I told Kat it sounded like something I would say. I told Kat, I was like, but being joking, like it's not funny, like no death is funny, but just the line he had said, let me see if I have it in text messages. I had just said like, oh my God, it sounds like something I would say. Let's see. She said he was just depressed and lonely. So she's talking about doing it. Another weird coincidence. He also, after all of the dark, weird, occult things he may have been involved in and writing about in poetry, he died in October of 1849, which I find to be very odd. I feel like that's very full circle, because October is like the witchy month. It's our month for paranormal, right?
I think it was October 3rd.
Interesting. 333. Yeah.
3.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's his last words. And I don't mean to laugh. Because it just sounds so dramatic, you know? So he was found delirious, semi-unconscious. He'd been kind of missing for 3 days. No one had known where he was. And his last words were, "Lord, help my soul." And then he just like conked out and died, and that was it. So interesting. Very interesting.
Weird.
It is really weird. It's almost, but a lot of people said that he also may have predicted his death. He had talked about his death, but once again, is that attributed to a cult, and maybe he was semi, like a medium or a psychic, and he could tell when his time was coming, or was it because he knew he wanted to commit suicide?
That's a good question.
Right. Is there paranormal happening in your room? Like, what's going on?
No, I don't know.
You don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
Okay. Keep going. Let's see. Oh, yeah, you did say he did have short stories. He did have some novels. So there's interesting theories that you were talking about, too.
Yes.
So The Raven was his most famous poem, which everybody knows The Raven, right? It was like gave him national fame. Mm-hmm. At the time, I assume through newspaper. Does that sound right?
Yeah, because like he wrote for a couple different journals as well.
Okay.
Like well-known journals. Let me see if I could, because I forget. I know one of them is. So I'm
laughing because on your like bullet points of facts about him, it says that he was obsessed with cats. And he often had one over his shoulder.
I want that to be true.
I'm laughing because you guys, Chanel is obsessed with cats. She has a cat. She's always rescuing cats. She always says she's going to be like the crazy cat lady surrounded by
Yeah.
cats. Izzy's in your room
100%.
knocking stuff over all over the place.
Of course, she has to be psycho right now of all time.
Always. Like, she just knew. She's like, she wants her minute of fame. Like, let her have her minute. You know what I mean?
Come over here.
Is she still making noise? Oh.
No, she's probably under my bed somewhere. But he wrote he wrote for the Burton's Gentleman magazine, Graham's magazine in Philadelphia, and Broadway Journal in New York.
So he knew people, in other words. If he were to get something good, which in his case it was The Raven. But I feel like, some people, and Marilyn Monroe was huge for her time, but I feel like, some stars die young, obviously. I know hers is different, but I feel like she's even more popular in 2019 than she was in her era. And I feel like the same goes for someone like Edgar Allan Poe. Like, he was probably really big. People loved The Raven, but now it's literally like a piece of literature that you study in like high school and college.
Right.
Like, I mean, I wonder, wherever he is crossed over on the other side, if he looks down and he's like, that's right, I made one of the best poems of all time, and now people study me. But it's a shame because when he was here, he wasn't, really appreciated at the extent that he probably should have been. Kind of for being like a writing savant, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that actually, unfortunately, happens to a lot of not only writers, but different artists as well.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of his writing? So if you read The Raven, right? I know The Raven.
Yeah, I remember there was one, I don't know, I think we read it in school. I think everybody had to actually read it in school. But it was so creepy to me as a teenager when I was reading it in school. And I was thinking, why are they making us read this in school? Of all things.
And now look at your job. Just
kidding. We're all already depressed that we have to be here. Like,
but it is really, it's iconic. You know what I mean? Like the poem itself is just, it is creepy. You're right. Like, and it always ends with, The Raven Nevermore. It's super creepy. If you guys haven't read it that are watching, you should really at least try to get through part of it. It's really long, but it is really good. So there's another theory that he possibly may have studied cryptozoology.
Yeah, well, cryptology. So cryptology is the study of codes or the art of writing and solving them.
Okay.
And people believed that he actually was also somebody that had the ability to hide the truth from the readers.
Okay.
And to sort of force them.
You mean like an underlying meeting sort of thing, or?
Like, he liked to force them to play detective whenever they were reading like his short stories.
Okay.
Or like articles that he had written for the different publishing.
Which would make sense considering some of his poetry is a little strange. Like, sometimes you're reading through it and you're like, where is this going? I don't understand what's happening right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that he did, one of the theories is that he used the number 6 often in a few of his writings, and some believed that it was like a wink to those readers who were familiar with the occult, because as we know, biblically, the number 6 or 666 is evil.
Right. Or once again, related to the occult, 333 related to the occult, right? Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
So the use of the number 6, he used it in a story called The Unparalleled Adventures of one Hans Peafall, I think.
It's literally P-F-A-L, literally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how else to pronounce that, but it was published in the Southern Literary Messenger as a factual piece, actually, but it wasn't. It was a made-up story. Mm-hmm. It was about a man's trip in a hot air balloon, and here I'll read like an excerpt from the story to give you an idea of the 6s that he's using.
Right.
So the question is, why so many 6s? So it says, looking at my watch, I found it 6 o'clock at 20 minutes past 6 o'clock, the barometer showed an elevation of 26,400 feet, or 5 miles to a fraction. At 6 o'clock, I perceived a great portion of the Earth's visible area to the eastward involved in thick shadow, which continued to advance with great rapidity until at 5 minutes before 7, the whole surface in view was enveloped in the darkness of night. Punctually every 60 minutes was I aroused by my trusty chronometer, when, having emptied the pitcher and performed the duties of the condenser, and I retired again to bed. So 5 times.
So I'm reading it as you're, I'm like, because I have it in the notes. It's,
yeah.
I mean, it makes you think. I guess you have to have, like, serious comprehension when you're reading through his stuff, and, like, you have to take breaks and be like, okay, what did I just read? Because right now I feel like in order to comprehend what just happened, I need to go back and read it like 3 more times, which is okay. It's cool. He liked to be cryptic and whatnot, right? Like, and you're right. Like, there's 6s, like every other 5 6s. It would have been cool if there was like 3 6s or like 6 6s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then that really would have stood out. But still, clearly it's related to the occult. I feel like we can all agree on that, right?
Right. And why emphasize 6 so much?
Well, yeah,
too?
why? The question is why. I'm even just looking over it again, and I'm like, it's a little redundant in a way. It's almost like you're just hearing 6 like every other word practically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, why so many 6s? That's weird. So he must have had... Makes you also wonder, was there like an OCD thing? Because I know that sometimes people with OCD like numbers. And they like specific numbers. So in his case, he liked 3s and 6s, is what we've heard through this like research. So obviously, even 6 or 3 times 2 is 6, right? So maybe that's why it like kind of breaks it up. So, I don't know. Interesting. So he won a couple of. Did he win any awards on his on any of his writings?
I think
he won at least one. It was one of his excerpts that he had done. But
sorry.
No, you're fine. So I'm just, when I read through his stuff, I told myself I have to have my notes out during the stream, because his, like, entries that he wrote, once again, are so complex to me.
Yeah.
That, like, I need to have the narrative in front of me, because it's like, I just want to make sure I'm, like, portraying this properly, you know what I mean? And there's another theory that I'd like to bring up, which I think is really fun. I've read about this theory, and I was so glad that you put it in the notes. That there could be theories that he is or was some sort of a time traveler.
Yes.
I love that theory, right? Like that's going into like paranormal realm-ish, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100% paranormal related. I think paranormal is such a broad thing, I feel like.
On the time traveler-esque part.
Yes.
What do you think stuck out about that? So
there was a novel called The Narrative of Arthur Pym of Nantucket, or Nantucket. Is that how you?
Yeah, Nantucket.
So in that story specifically, he talks about a shipwreck where 3 of the 4 crew members would succumb to cannibalism, and in the story, the crew actually, the way that they decided on who was going to be eaten was that they drew straws, and the unlucky person was Richard Parker, and they apparently
what a way to go! You got literally the short end of the stick, like literally.
I know. So they began to stab him to death.
Oh.
They threw his hands, feet, and head overboard, and then ate him.
Delicious.
So,
God.
But then, the book was published in 1838, right?
Right.
But a nearly identical story came out 46 years later about a shipwreck where there was a cabin boy named Richard Parker who was a victim of cannibalism.
Conspiracy theories at its best. Drop the mic.
Yes.
Which we love. I know that I haven't really talked about a lot of conspiracy theories on the channel. It's something that I hope that we can talk about more in the future. It depends on the conspiracy theories, you know, like some of them you can really go down like a dark rabbit hole.
I have.
And those I try to stay away from, but some of the funner ones, even like I'm going to be doing a chat about, you know, the battle for Los Angeles, because historically that happened, I think it was this week, in the year that it happened. But so I like to talk alien conspiracies, obviously, you know, stuff like that. Of course, I'm a believer in aliens, but this stuff is weird. How could 46 years later an identical story come out with a person named Richard Parker?
Right.
How could that happen?
Down to the name of the guy that was killed. Mm-hmm. You know?
Or was this like a psychic kind of thing stepping in or something, right? Now, was he was the author of this, right? The novel?
Yes.
So what? So there's two.
It wasn't. It was an article, I think. No, it was a novel. Just kidding. Yeah, it was a novel.
I have the notes right here. It was a novel. Yep.
Okay.
A novel. Yep, that he wrote. So the question is, was he a time traveler or was he extremely psychic? And maybe that's where he was getting all these encounters of the occult. Sure, maybe he practiced the occult too. Clearly, like he's quite knowledgeable, in my opinion, and in some of the you know, poetry and things that he's written. And with that, remember, like, you're going back to, what was this, 1820 something, right? Like, when all this is happening?
It was like 1838 or something like that, yeah.
There's no internet. I'm sure books are hard to access regarding occult, right? Like, so for him to be knowledgeable on all of this stuff, he had to have either known someone that practiced it or he practiced it personally. And in my opinion, for him to brashly publish, you know, narratives on everything from like novels to poems to short stories, he had to be confident enough to not only know it but to also write about it. So in my opinion, I think he had to either practice or study it.
For sure.
Weird. That's so weird. Strange. So time traveler. And then he did continue his writing until he died, sadly, right?
Yeah.
And then he ends up passing away. And it was like he died kind of alone.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I mean...
And I feel like, weirdly, that's kind of how a lot of really, like, looked back upon artists, how they died, you know? Because you talk, like, tragic deaths.
Sure.
It's just one of those things.
Not just writers, but anyone that's kind of in the public eye, they do end up being kind of go back to Marilyn Monroe, right? Go back to Elvis Presley. They end up alone. Just strange. It is weird though how they say that Edgar Allan Poe was kind of like half coherent when he was finally found, but he was able to like get one last line out before he like died. But I feel like oddly that's poetic in the way he would have wanted to go.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, isn't it like just like with his writings being kind of like weird and dark and dramatic? I feel like that's a weird, dark, dramatic death. You know what I mean? Like disappear for 3 days. Someone finally finds you. You're half alive. You blurb this really like horrible, depressing like, you know, line, and then you're dead, and that's it. So anyway, interesting. So did he end up having kids? That was one thing I wanted to ask.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I have no idea. I feel like no, because maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they were cousins, if they would have wanted to do. I mean, sometimes there were, what's it called when you're like born with issues because you've kept it like with incestuous relationships. Maybe he was afraid of that. I feel like he was a smart person, which is why it was so shocking for me that he married his cousin. Just from his writings and from like his rhetoric. Rhetoric is the way someone speaks, and like for his personal example is the way he would put his words into writing. I just feel like his rhetoric is from a very intelligent man, obviously from like a different time. So it's just interesting to me, like the whole enchilada. I also wonder what he did in the army. I wonder what his job was, just because I'm curious.
I did too, because I did also read that another one of the reasons, or could have been another one of the reasons that he had to, like, left the army was because he wasn't showing up for any of the training.
Yeah, but then he would have gotten in really big trouble if that was happening.
That's true.
He would have gotten, like, dishonorably discharged, and he may have had to break rocks into smaller rocks. But I might have to research that just out of curiosity. So I guess let's just swing for just a few, because we only have a few minutes left to chat.
Sure.
So I'm going to be doing a chat regarding the Battle of Los Angeles on my pre-recorded stream. So I don't want to give too much away. But one of the reasons I'm doing it is it occurred February 25th of 1942. So this week, right? So do you believe in aliens, Shanae?
Oh, 100%.
Do you?
I do.
We experienced one not too long ago, right?
Yeah.
On set, we had a real interesting situation. I will say one thing that we've learned as a crew is that for some reason, Chanel literally repels the aliens. So if we ever are going to get abducted, I'm going to run to Chanel, because this person we met that we are sure is not human did not want anything to do with Chanel. She was like...
It was so weird. She didn't even want to look at me, and I don't even know. It was like, I got, even Kat, I don't know if she's here, like in the chat, but even, wait, hold on, sorry.
Did she just froze. I don't know if she ended the call. Poor connection. See, I told you guys she lives in a small town. Oh, Shanae. 1 second. I'm going to take you guys off of IRL Plus and see if I can get her back on the phone. It's probably because we're talking about aliens, is just my opinion, that suddenly now the aliens are going to enter contact. I do get concerned for her because if she got abducted, she's in a small town. That's all I'm going to say. Just kidding. Are you there?
Yes.
That was weird, right? What was that?
I don't know.
Super weird. You just, like, froze. I told everybody, like, the aliens do not want us to talk about them. Clearly, that's what's wrong.
It's what it is. I'm telling you.
I did, like, a poll on Twitter, and it was, like, 96% of people, and it was quite a few people that had voted. I said, do you believe in aliens? And 96% said yes. And I was like, all right, the other 3%, 4% is aliens, okay? They don't want anybody to know that they're here. But yeah, so, I mean, it'll be interesting talking about the battle for Los Angeles, because I feel like a lot of times alien stuff has been kind of swept under the rug as always being some sort of, like, military experiment or, like, some sort of, like, weather-related atmosphere issue, right? Like, they have to blame it on something external. Here's another sporadic random thing is, when it comes to aliens, do you think the Men in Black exist?
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to really say that some things are impossible, you know, because it's just, with that kind of thing, I feel like anything's possible.
Yeah.
I 100% think that there are, like, shapeshifter beings where they can look like humans, because that's kind of something that would make sense.
Right. Well, honestly, not only shapeshifters, I feel like some aliens probably just look like us.
Yeah.
You know, like I've talked about this before. I have a cousin that used to work at NASA. He's a chemical engineer. And he would be like, yeah, there's aliens that work at NASA. He'd be like, they help with our technology and all this stuff. And like, but he had met them, and I'm like, so what do they look like? You know, he's like, just like us. Just like us. And I'm like, okay. But they're like really knowledgeable and like futuristic and, you know, just different. Obviously, he's like, well, you know, when you encounter somebody, you just know when they're not, you know, human, which I've that clearly happened to us on set. We weren't really expecting that to happen on set, but...
Nope.
Oh, conspiracies. Don't we just love those? Here we go. Chanel and I are going to go down a total dark rabbit hole. So anyway, guys, that is it for our stream tonight. Super cool. I know that Ghost Adventures had a new episode on. Some people were asking if I was going to review it. I don't know. I think I'm trying to shed the image of Ghost Girl Diaries doing reviews. It's nothing personal. It's just I feel like everybody already knows what I'm going to say. I've always been like outspoken on things and been honest and told the truth. So I feel like you guys are already going to know what I have. I haven't seen any of the new episodes on anything because I've been working constantly. Chanel knows that. I've been working like way too much. So I am going to get the other video up. I'll have it edited and up tonight. Make sure you watch for it because, and it'll be short. You know, I'm trying to keep the pre-stream edited videos to like 10-15 minutes or so, just because I don't have a ton of time to not only film them but also edit them, because Blake is doing the editing on that. I'm going to be doing giveaways, so that will be our first giveaway episode on YouTube. And so it'll be on the Battle for Los Angeles one that'll come up after this. And this week, I think we're just going to do one giveaway to start. But the giveaway is going to be ghost gear, so make sure you tune in for it. I think this week I'm going to do like maybe like a digital recorder and a K2 meter or something like that. I have some extra gear that we don't need because we updated all of our film equipment. So I'm going to be just giving away ghost gear we don't need and that we've used and it works, practically new. So make sure you tune in for that. It'll be an easy giveaway. I'm only going to ship giveaways once a month. And that's so that I'm not constantly going to the post office. So if I have like 4 giveaways a month on every Friday, they will only ship out like after the 1st, just so I can do like 1 shipment a month. So if you haven't gotten your giveaway after like a week, it's because it hasn't gone yet. Well, this week it'll go out, obviously. So anyway, make sure you tune in for that. Thank you guys so much for catching us this week. Next week will be Kat. Can't remember what we're talking about, but I'm sure Kat has something good planned. Shanae, I think your mic is on mute if you want to say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Chanel. Oh my goodness. Yep, I'm in post-production officially, which means I am editing a ton. It also means I don't have a life right now. It means that I have no makeup on usually, and I'm hiding in a hoodie, and so yeah. Social media has been, I haven't been on social media too much because priorities are the pilot and the series for us, which are still going very beautifully, might I add. And was there any questions? I didn't even go through. I think I accidentally exited out of my question menu. You don't see anything, do you?
No. Everybody's just saying hi and...
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
It's gonna be so fun. We love our streams on Saturdays. So catch us next week. Make sure you subscribe to all of our stuff. Stay tuned for the next video that'll be up tonight. And as always, we will catch you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through?